This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
So today I'm really excited. I have Stacey Howe-Lott on the show again. She runs a really interesting service where she helps teenagers improve their test scores for the SAT and what's the other one?
ACT.
ACT. I can never remember them both.
It was long ago, right?
It was a little while ago. But we've just found one really cool thing that I've experienced, honestly, on almost every guest that I have on, but especially with Stacey, is we've just really formed a great friendship and learned a lot from each other so far. And she has a lot of really interesting stories to share. And she also just has a really, in my opinion, focused, kind of disciplined approach of how she runs her business while being a mom and mother and and wife and doing all these other things on top of it. So thanks for coming back on the show today, Stacey.
Thank you.
And I thought we'd open up with something really interesting because this guy's one of my heroes and somebody I've read a lot about, and you got to share the stage with him. So tell us a little bit about how you got to share the stage with Seth Godin and how all that worked out.
Yeah, so I'm a soccer mom, right? Like, I am not a business guru. I am not famous. I don't have a book. I am the most ordinary person you could imagine. And yeah, I ended up on his stage. He asked me to come speak. And so here's how it came about. He started the Alt MBA several years ago. Have you all seen that? I think they're filling their last cohort for the year. I think it'll be the fall cohort. If you haven't done it, it is so worth doing. So I'll find the post. If I give you my link, you'll jump to the front of the line because he always gets thousands and thousands of applicants, and they only pull 100 people for each cohort. So anyway, I remember I had seen every now and then, and as you, Gabe, right? I've been following him for years. And he occasionally posts like, hey, come work with me in New York for a week or something. And I was like, well, okay, I can't just leave my life and come to New York for a week. But I just every time he had these things of, hey, come work with me, I was always like, oh, I so want to do that, but it never worked out. And then I remember him, it was like an online something, and he said, come work with me or something. And I was like, well, I couldn't because, he headlines internationally, right? And then he wrote a post about how one of the people he selected was a woman from the Midwest who was in part-time night school or something. And he was writing about her. And I think the post was, always choose yourself. Like, why do we not choose ourselves? Now, it doesn't mean the world will choose you, but you should choose yourself. And that really struck a chord with me. And I realized, looking around in my life, both professionally and personally, that if I didn't think I had a shot, I wouldn't do it, right? Like, I was being smart about it.
Yeah.
And I realized, well, that's just stupid because I am preventing myself from going for things that maybe I could get. So I resolved that the next time he posted anything, I was going to go for it. I mean, that would fit into my lifestyle, that I would go for it. So we opened up Alt MBA and said, for the first cohort, okay, we're going to, we'll take the 100 people, and here's how to apply. And the second that thing hit my inbox, I immediately filled it out, and we had to send in a video. And like, I had, slept children to school and worked out, I hadn't showered and probably was not wearing a bra, just the whole rolled out of bed sort of thing. I was like, okay, well, I've got 5 minutes to get this done. And so I flipped on the video and just said, hey, here's who I am. And here's why I would love an opportunity to participate. And in the filling out, you had to say, what was your last leadership experience? I was like, well, that'd be with my Girl Scout troop, right? I mean, like, all my mom things. And, what did you learn? I said, well, I actually made them cry because they were doing the project wrong. They were kindergartners and they were doing the project wrong. And what I learned about that, again, that I'd forgotten, was as a teacher, it's always my responsibility to anticipate what's going to happen. And anyway, so I just kind of wrote, who I was and sent it off. And I thought, well, there's no way he's going to choose me because he can choose international business people. And it turned out that I got chosen. and it was life-changing. And I'm a teacher, so I love finding teaching opportunities and learning opportunities. So I'm a tech junkie and a course junkie, where I'm always looking for, how are people teaching? I mean, that's how I met you.
Yeah.
What are people doing? And I really love watching how people are teaching. And he teaches, it's a very hands-on experience that you have to carve out 15 hours real time every week, and no one has that. And you're on with your cohort for hours, like all day on Sunday, and no one has all day on Sunday free. So anyway, this great experience. And then out of that, a couple of us got together, and every pass through you worked, 100 people came through, and we realized that there was such a great brain trust in the program, and we weren't utilizing that. Like we didn't have a good structure for how can different cohorts meet different cohorts, and we can educate one another. Because it's like this powerhouse Google. Like you can go into the Align group and say, I'm struggling with this, and CEOs and like big people can say, oh, hey, wait a minute, here's what you should do. So we created something called Teach and Learns, where we have a brown bag on Friday, and then people can just talk for 20 minutes, and then we discuss what they said for 20 minutes. And so we started that, and then I approached them and said, you know what, people don't know how to teach. What about I work with people ahead of time, and I'll show them how they can structure their talk, so we all get more out of it. So I now work with people all over the world to structure these talks. And so we did that for about 1.5 years. And then one of the other organizers of the Teach and Learn said, you know what, why don't we do this in person in New York? So he talked to Seth, and Seth said, yes, let's get an in-person, because we've never done all MBA together yet. So he called for in-person, and then they called for speakers. And I was like, well, I couldn't possibly go to New York, and I couldn't possibly be on stage. And so I said no. And then I sat there and thought about it and thought, you know what? I mean, it's just a flight. I can leave my family for a weekend. I mean, it's not like I'm going to Siberia or something.
They'll live.
I know they'll live. They'll be fine. And I was like, okay, I can do it. I can do it. And so I wrote him back. I was like, okay, is it too late? He said, nope, it's not too late. And you're going to headline it. You're going to be the first one up. And I was like, oh my God, because for teaching, one of the things, and I didn't realize that until he said you're going first, is I hate going first, but there's an educational reason why I hate going first. I really like I need to see what's going on in the classroom, and then I speak into that. But going first is like, oh my God. Oh, and then the other things is we couldn't have a PowerPoint, which I understand, because people are horrible with PowerPoint, but we couldn't have any visuals. But the problem is I teach with visuals. Half my content is visuals, and I really utilize that to make my point. So it was like, when you can't do that, it's like, it was like go on stage and say nothing and have a good talk. I was terrified. So I decided, okay, can't use visuals, but I can use props. So I came up with using props. And then everything that could go wrong went wrong that month. Like my husband was hospitalized. Every week I was going to send an email and say, I'm so sorry, but I can't, because my life has imploded. And it worked out that I just did it anyway. And what was interesting is I don't think I did a very good job, but it was absolutely life-changing. It was amazing. So I was on stage and presented about cupcakes, and no one else had props, and people are like, big time CEO type people, and they talked about big time CEO things. But here's the thing. Here's what I talked about. I said, learning should be like a cupcake. Because what we do is we try and tell people all the things. Let me tell you everything there is to know about this subject. And then you make me do the work of sorting through, okay, what should I eat first? It's like a bakery. You drop a bakery in our heads, and then you say, put together a dinner. And you're like, well, I don't know where to start. I mean, I see all this great stuff, but I don't know what to do. And instead, we need to do the work and sort through all of that and come up. You'll listen to our learners or our customers or our clients and say, based on my expertise, here's a cupcake. Here's the one thing you need to do next that will most forward your journey. And then after I take that cupcake, then I'll say, great, what's next? And Gabe, you and I have done this because
Yeah.
I've said, oh my God, SEO, or oh my God, Facebook ads. And yes, I know I can Google it and there'll be 500 things I should do. And even in, people's learning things, you do these 500 things. I don't want to know the 500 things. Just tell me 2 things that I can do that will start me forward. And you said, great, here are the 2 things to do. Do this, do that. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And so really you were a great example of that you really filtered everything down for me and just gave me like 2 actions. You didn't fill my head with theory. You didn't say, here's the history of Facebook ads, and you didn't like fill my head with pixels and like all the tech of doing it. You said, no, look, go do videos. Like just sit and shoot videos on these topics. Do 5 of those. And then I'll talk to you, after you do that. That was super, super helpful for me.
Thank you. I'm glad I got the cupcakes right. And
you totally got the cupcakes. So I think all of us can adapt a cupcake strategy of, instead of, again, oh my God, I'm going to create a 15 module course. I'm going to talk to people for hours. I'm going to create an hour and a half video for people, or whatever it is. Instead, say, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I could give someone that they would say, wow, that really made a difference. That took me one step further down the road. Thank you for helping me get into action and implement something that's going to help my business.
That's really fascinating. And I'm glad you shared it, because we've mentioned in conversation about your experience with Seth, and we haven't chatted about it ever. So this is really cool. And I have a really interesting follow-up question, unless there's anything else to add to that. Mm-hmm. How should an event organizer help their speakers give out cupcakes? Because I have the ability to distill down to one thing, but it's taken me a long time to get to that level. And I typically will read an entire book and take 1 cupcake, or I'll go to an event and I may get 3 or 4 cupcakes tops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I know, like you go for a whole day. People are brilliant, right? It's not like they've got the wrong speakers, but there's so much value. You just it's like a tsunami, and you're like, oh my God. And you're trying to walk away with an action or 2. And if it's a successful event, maybe you get 2 or 3 cupcakes, when really the event should be designed to say, here are 40 cupcakes, and yes. So the question is, how do you empower people to empower other people, right? How do you, so what are the actions that people will take as a result of your talk?
So do you just boil it down to the end of your talk being, now I've shared a bunch of information and do this, or what? Because I think that one thing I help people with or deal with, or I see a lot of, is after the event, they're like, what should I do, Gabe? I have no idea. I'm totally overwhelmed with the 87 things that I should do. I have a personal way of getting there, but I don't really know it. I just know I have it.
Yeah. I think the burden's always on the audience, and I think we need to flip the burden. The burden should not be on me as the learner. You're the expert. Right? So I don't know what to do for Facebook ads. So if you tell me 400 things to do, and I'm like, okay, look, I can only do 2 today. You need to tell me which are the 2 that are important. So I would say not even give them all like if you're planning a talk, and I'm sure some of your audience speaks for a living or speaks as part of their business. Don't plan your talk and then stick the actions on the end. Have the actions lead the talk. And what I mean by that is going in saying, I want people to, what is it? Run a Facebook ad, to work out daily, to change their eating habits, to meditate every day. I mean, I don't know what it is that you're trying to teach, but if you start with, I want people to do X, and it's not like be better people or chase unicorns, right? It has to be like, I want people to, yes, I want people to eat a vegetarian lunch every day this week, right? Like that would, if I want to get people to eat better, and I think eating vegetarian is on that way, then I can say, I want to empower people that they will eat 5 vegetarian lunches this week. Now that's kind of already defining your talk, right? They need to figure out, okay, I need to go to the store, and what am I going to buy? What prep work do I need to do? What recipes am I going to do? Right? That's a different talk than, let's talk about the theory of vegetarianism and why it's a really good idea. Because we could have that conversation, and we all might walk out thinking, well, someday I should try that.
Right.
That's different than, oh my gosh, I have look at this. I know exactly what to go to the store today. I've got my list. I can go to the store today, and I'm now set up to implement vegetarianism for lunch every day this week. And I would say, an ounce of action is worth a pound of theory.
I would totally agree with that one.
Right? Because we have all these good ideas in the world. The world doesn't need more good ideas, even in your field, right? And whatever you're teaching, your people don't need your good ideas. What your people need is for you to lead them into action, right? That they need to be in action, and your job is to get them into action. Your job is not to tell them interesting information.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
And it's hard because when you look around, a lot of us are talking about information. You should push that button instead of that button. You should eat healthier. We should be better people. And it's not that those ideas are bad, but it's not designed to get people into action. And really, we're not judged on what you say or what you think, right? Your work is judged on, are people implementing that in the world? So if you can empower more people to implement and get into action, you will win. You will win in the marketplace. People will start raving about you, right? And you and I have talked about this. Every time you come across something that is that empowering and that useful, you call everyone you know and you say, oh my God, you have to go listen to her. You have to go listen to the TED Talk, or you have to take this class. Right? And I'm sure people that if they called you and said, Gabe, you have to do this, you're like, okay, where's my credit card? Right? You don't need to be sold. You don't need to be doing anything. You're like, oh, you said I should do this. I'm doing this, like done. And so the more we can empower people into action, doing the work, like that's your sales force. I'm not saying we don't market, but do you know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be great if instead of running Facebook ads, nothing against Facebook ads, right? My husband works for Facebook, so I'm a fan of Facebook. But what if instead of putting that money and that energy into marketing our thing, like saying, hey, you should buy my thing, what if we put that energy and money into making that thing so incredibly useful and easy to implement that everyone who took the thing called 10 of their friends and said, oh my God, you got to buy the thing. Like, you just go buy it.
Gold.
And I don't think it's that, it's not like a technical solution. Like, like we don't have to buy anything new or get the new widget or do the new fancy expensive thing. What we need to do is change our focus from what do I want to say to what does my learner need to do? What's the next step my learner needs to take? What's the one cupcake I could give that they would then take one step closer to their goals? Notice that's not one step closer to my goals, right? I need to understand what my learner wants to do, and I need to help them do that. And if you can do that, you will win, right? I mean,
you won't win. You will have world domination.
Exactly. You will have so much business, you don't know what to do with it. That truly, and we can, you can look around in the market and it's so easy to see, the information pieces and the people that talk about themselves and the people that talk about their thing. You should buy my widget. And you see other marketing messages that say, I know you really want to do X, and this thing will give you 1, 2, 3, which then moves you that much closer to X. That's pretty awesome. Action focus, not information focus.
That ties right into what we're going to talk about, the book that we both read in a minute, but it's totally right there. But anyway, in a second, we'll get to that. But you made me think something, and I want to ask you this because you said that you're from a family of teachers. You're like 3rd or 4th generation, right? So I think as you were talking about that, I just realized like how I process information and what I do is I typically read a book, take a course, go to an event, and I'll walk away, distill a few things and share that with people I know, with my audience or anybody in my tribe. And I love that. That's very normal for me. And I also think that if you're standing on stage speaking, or you do a lot of speaking, or you do a lot of educating, you probably are an avid learner. You probably love learning, you probably love information, and you're probably good at finding the cupcakes in the whole cake mix or whatever. what's your experience of the types of people or the learning styles or those different sides of it? Because you're obviously a teacher, and so you know how to get that information and break it down to students, to business people who you help, prepare their talks or focus on things like that. What have you observed is the different types of minds or the different types of things that are common that we run into? And I'm asking that because if, as a speaker, I realize that this is kind of how a lot of people learn or move. Like, you just covered a lot of this, but I guess I'm diving a little bit deeper. Like, if you understand this is how a lot of people learn and grow and understand, then I think that makes you a better teacher, right? And you've obviously thought through teaching well. Am I being clear enough or not?
I think so. I think what you're asking is, I love, if I'm a teacher and share my information, I really love to learn. I love all the detail and all of that.
Right.
But how do I teach people that might be different than me?
Right.
And I would argue everyone is different than you, right? And I think that's easy to say, but I don't think people get that. I think teachers get that. But I don't think people really, really get that, really get in their bones that other people's brains don't work like your brains.
Right.
Hang on, I'm trying to pull up, dang it, I didn't know we could do pictures on this one, so I didn't prep up my graphics.
Yeah, you can share your screen if you want, I think.
Ooh, okay, so let me find, where is my PDF that I want? Of course, it's not right where I want to have it. Let me search Evernote.
While you're looking, because another kind of more context for that question is, like, I've tried to, not super successfully, but I've tried to start to discover how each of my team members learns so that I teach them correctly. Because I know some people are very audio, some people are very visual, some people need to do it to learn, like do it themselves. And so that's where I just wondered if there's more ways when we're speaking or teaching, either on a Facebook Live or an event, if there's a way to empower people more by being aware of those teaching, or I'm sorry, those learning styles.
So I think there is, yes. And learning styles is a myth, which it's a very pervasive myth. I know, because everyone, including teachers, believe in learning styles.
That's good. Maybe we should talk about that then.
Right, but they actually they've done rigorous study, and that's not a thing. But I think what is important is in terms of getting people into action, right? So you could lecture, and why we have lecture, it's the least effective method of transferring information from one place to another, but yet you look at college, and college is lecture. So we're like, oh, well, auditory learners, right? They learn best. Well, there are people that can learn that way, but that's not most people. And it's, again, the most inefficient way of learning. So I think the best way to think of learning is how can I get the people to do the thing that I want them to do? So I could tell them, right? I could tell you, Gabe, here's what you need to do. And you could sit there and you can either take notes furiously, or I could provide a handout. I could say, Gabe, here, we're going to kind of talk about these things, and here are the steps. And then you could take my handout, and then you could go do it. Or I could tell you about it and then ask you about it, right? And that's actually one of the most effective ways of retaining information is to quiz yourself. Okay. So I tell you something, and then I say, Gabe, what are the 4 continents of, blah, blah, blah. So you have to go into your memory bank and pull it back out. That's the most efficient way of learning, which is why doing is most effective, because doing means, okay, yep, he told me the theory, and he said something about the thing, but what was it? Like, I actually have to go in, pull it out of my memory bank, and use it to successfully complete the task. So that's why I think focusing on action and having your people do it, because then, like, I wouldn't just get on stage and talk about theory. If I really want people to open up a YouTube channel, I wouldn't get up and talk about, YouTube is awesome. we should all be on YouTube, blah, 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 blah. I'd say, and, you know, at the back of the room are the handouts of the 4 steps you need to do. I'll just briefly talk about them here, you know, blah, 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 or you take a screenshot of my slide with those 4 steps on it. Now, what I want you to go back and do is, you know, go do them by this Friday. And here's the hashtag we'll talk about. If you run into trouble, tweet me or something. Right? That you're actually saying get into action, and here's some support to make you do that or to help you do that. Gotcha. And back to your point of we're all different. Mm-hmm. And I do think teachers love to learn. Like I love, you know, who wouldn't want to read a cognitive science journal? Like who wouldn't do that? And my husband goes to bed with these, he's a computer programmer. So he goes to bed with these graduate level computer. He's like, I got a new book. This is so great. And I'm like, oh, like that is the most boring thing ever, right? But he loves it. And people that love to learn, love to teach. But we have to realize that everyone else doesn't love to learn. Like for Facebook ads, please do not tell me all of the stupid blah, blah, blah stuff. You know, well, the pixels dependent on that. You need to hook up that because, you know, that. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to know all that. I am so not interested in that. I am just interested in how can I reach my audience better? And so you tell me shoot a video. Okay. And then you're going to tell me paste the pixel thing into here. I don't want to know why, but you're like, you got to do the pixel thing next. Okay. I'll do the pixel thing. Like you got to realize that people usually don't want the level of detail that you know. Like, for example, like if we're experts, and I assume, you know, you're an expert, your audience is experts. Like if this is everything that we know, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to teach everything I know, right? I'll teach a little bit of what I know, right? I'll teach this much. But you know what people want to know? They want to know that much. And that overlaps with what they want, right? They're like, I only want to know your stuff if it's going to serve my stuff, right? I don't want to know it unless it's going to forward me to get me where I want to go. So we have to stop thinking of like all the things and getting down again to that cupcake, right? That they just want the cupcake version. And I am ready to do a 20-course meal, right? I want to do a 20-course meal. I have studied for years. I have degrees, right? I want to give you all the things. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do I package my 20-course or my 20 entree, 20 courses served meal into cupcakes that I can give you one. And then, you know, if you like it, you can say I'd like another. And if you don't like it, I can say, oops, sorry, I tried this cupcake instead. And the more we can drill down into those tiny, bite-sized, action-oriented things, I think the better we'll all be. Because, you know, I'm sure your stuff is great. Your, you know, 20-course Facebook thing is great, but I don't want it. I just want the minimum of cupcakes I need in order to reach my audience, you know?
That's really, I think you're totally right. And I think that you said it very clearly, like, if you're a teacher, a leader, a speaker, an expert, you love learning.
Yeah.
You love it so much that there's overflow coming out of your brain and your life and you want to share it, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're truly serving your audience, they're probably not going to want to learn that much or have any ability to process that much. And realistically, because I feel this once in a great while, not a lot because I love learning, but realistically, if you just crammed a bunch of information into somebody's head, they're going to walk away totally depressed, discouraged, and not take any action, which is the polar opposite of what you're supposed to be doing if you're serving them and helping them grow.
Yes. And so, all right. So exactly what you said. It's kind of like going to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Like you never walk out of the all-you-can-eat buffet thinking, you know what? That was awesome. You walk out like, oh my God, I'm rolling out, right? Like, oh, like if someone says to you, what was your favorite bite in the all-you-can-eat buffet? You're like, dude, I don't know. I had like, 3 plates of that. And like, like you can't even start distinguishing what you had. Mm-hmm. And notice that very expensive restaurants, I just turned 50. So we went out to the most expensive restaurant in town with my family. And these entrees were, this big, right? No. They were so good. And so we had, like you had 5 bites, like that was it. And then they moved on to the next dish, which was 5 bites. Every single dish, amazing. And we're still talking about it, right? It was the most amazing meal. Now, the portions were small, the flavors were absolutely specific, and each each plate linked to the next plate. Do you know, like it made sense. And it was outstanding. And all told, it was maybe a plate full of food, right, by the end of the night. But it's very different than an all-you-can-eat buffet. And I think all of us should be doing the high-end, tiny bites restaurant instead of the all-you-can-eat buffet. Because Google has kicked our ass, right? Google is the all-you-can-eat buffet. So if you're like, I'm going to tell everyone everything about my thing, Google has already won that, right? You're losing. So why do a fight you can't win? But what you can do is open up your own high-end restaurant with these amazing plates that everyone will say, you got to go to this restaurant. It is so good.
Yeah, that's another great example. Because if anybody pays attention, the crappier the restaurant, the more food.
They do volume, right? I'm going to get you on volume.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't make my experience better. It's actually, it's like you said, the high-end restaurant has the small portions, the right courses, the right timing. And so as communicators, not because we intended to, but I think with lack of knowledge, and now that you have the knowledge, if you're watching today, don't be lazy, in using the old format, we really have to slice it down to teeny tiny pieces. And Kyle, who just jumped on, actually harps on me about all this time, and he's very true about it. He's like, let's get to the point really efficiently.
Yes.
And you really helped me with one of my presentations, Stacey, that I sent you. Like, you're like, it's all well and good that you want to share a little bit about your family and your background. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're taking too long to do that. And you're stealing people's time when you're not being concise. And I think it's just, I think you're totally right. And I think the only way to see that sometimes is to ask people for feedback. Like Kyle actually helps my team every week just with outside perspective. That's literally very good at what he does, but I hire him because he's, he has outside perspective and he's good at what he does. I cannot see what I'm spewing out sometimes.
Absolutely. So important that in my head, it all makes sense. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, this is the best thing. And I give it to a learner and the learner's like, dude, what is happening? I don't get this. And I'm like, oh, and all of a sudden, like the scales are off, right? All of a sudden I can see their point of view. So yes, what we need to be doing is beta testing all of our stuff. Absolutely. That you kind of come up with an idea and you're thinking, okay, this might work. Do a lo-fi beta, right? Don't spend $1 million. Don't get it professionally designed. Just do some crappy PowerPoint or whatever that you're capable of doing and send it to a learner. And the learner can say, yep, the first page really resonated, but I don't understand this. And why did we talk about this? Because that's not even related. And then you can start creating it from their point of view. Mm-hmm. And good learning lies with the learner. Good learning doesn't lie with the instructor, right? Good learning that exists in my head does no one any good. It's only the learning that exists in the world. And the only one that can judge whether the learning is good in the world isn't me. It is the learners.
Student, the one that can go.
It's the student that can say this is useful or this isn't. And you see it all the time in our current political situation where people who are the teachers or people who are saying this is awesome. It's like, no, you create it, but you're not the judge of whether it's awesome. You have to listen to the people, and the people can say this is useful or this isn't useful. And so I see it conflated all the time politically in this administration that they're conflating those two. Instead of putting the work out and then getting the feedback of, is this helpful? Did this move you further to your goals? And if it didn't, how do I change it?
Yeah, because the opposite you go out there to try to teach and serve your audience and make the world a better place. And if you structure your content wrong, which is crazy, you can actually leave somebody totally stranded. I can't tell how many posts a day in my feed I see like, oh, college was a joke. Maybe college wasn't a joke. Maybe they just got everything jammed into the wrong way and they didn't excite you to become a learner. And like back to cupcakes, because I guess that's what we're talking about today. Like over the weekend, Rachel made muffins, and like she makes these teeny little muffins. They're super good. And I eat one, and then I go back and I eat the rest. Like I ate 20 cupcakes.
See, there you go. That's the brilliance of a good cupcake, right?
Exactly. And so if we just realize that our delivery method is breaking other people's minds, to put it a little bit bluntly. And if instead of using a traditional method, we give one cupcake, they will come back and they will eat all your cupcakes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, if you get your job done, what you want is to have people that say, here's my credit card. Anytime you have a new thing, just send it to me, right? Like I am clear on the value you deliver. I am clear how much you help me move my business forward, right? So yeah, so you just got a free access to my credit card because your work is so valuable for me. Yes. So yeah, our job is to make those cupcakes that people just can't get enough of. I started out training dogs, which actually is really awesome, because if the dog doesn't do what you want, whose fault is it? It's not the dog's fault, it is your fault. So, and then I had toddlers, right? So actually dogs and toddlers are a perfect audience, because you need to get them to do something. But if they don't, you're clear it's me. Now with adults, we're like, well, I gave them a really great training. They didn't do it because they're idiots, right? Clearly that's the problem. My training was fabulous. The audience sucks. But when you come out of toddlers and dogs and working with, people who can't talk, you're clear that I didn't present the information in a way that they could understand it and take action on it. And my priorities aren't their priorities. And then the end result isn't, and they're idiots, which is what we do as adults. Again, their priorities aren't mine, and therefore they're idiots. It's, oops, my priorities aren't their priorities, and I need to change the information in a way that they can hear and do the action I want them to take in a way that's consistent with their priorities. Like, for example, when I was training my dog, she was snarky. She would bite. So I had to convince her not to bite me every time I reached for a treat, and not to bite. Well, she didn't bite children, but I needed her to have it's called a soft mouth, right? A hard mouth is going to take it really big. And I need her to have a really soft mouth around children. So then when they, stuck their hand in her mouth, she would immediately not bite. And she came with a really hard mouth. So I had to change that. So we had to work on, if I'm holding the treat, the second you put your teeth on me, you don't get the treat. And I know you want the treat. But the only way you're going to get the treat is if you either turn your head away when I reach toward you, or that you don't use your teeth. Mm-hmm. So I knew that her language was the treat, right? I knew she wanted the treat. And so so I could put the behavior that I wanted in before the treat and teach her, you need to do the behavior in order to get what you want. So that same kind of concept of what is it that my audience wants to do? And I know what they need to do. So it may be you're sitting back there saying, you know what, she needs to learn all the pixel stuff. And I'm clear that she doesn't want to. So I need to bribe her. What am I going to bribe her with so that she'll be willing to do all the pixel stuff so she'll get the result that she wants, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because sometimes you got to do, you're right, sometimes you got to do all that stuff. But you're clear that you're clear on what I want, and you're clear on how you're going to help me get your goals. And none of that is she has to read, 500 pages and do all the technical manual stuff. Because, I don't think there's a treat big enough to make me do that. And I think it's so easy to get frustrated with other people in our audience and our clients and our customers of saying, they didn't get the offer. I wrote the great sales page and I have the wrong clients, or, my stupid customers or something. Instead of saying, wow, this didn't connect. What am I missing? And circling back to your idea of betas, right? Like who can I run this by and really hear where am I missing?
Yeah.
And I really think entrepreneurs, more than anything else, is listening, right? Teaching certainly is. People think teaching is talking, but teaching is actually just listening to where that learner is blocked and where the holes are. And you say the minimum amount, or you just twist them, a half an inch to the right, and then you back off, because then they're good.
Yeah.
So we need to be listening for, okay, what's not working for you, and what's the minimum thing that I can put in there to then let you go and do the thing that you want to do.
And the interesting thing, and this is a little bit self-serving, but I think it is worth sharing with teachers and presenters and stuff, is that if you approach the initial conversations the right way and you give them the cupcake, not only will they move forward and love you and tell everybody about you, which I'm going to demonstrate that in 1 minute here, but also they will probably engage in becoming great learners and go devour a bunch of information because you set enough momentum and enough interest. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know how much I love this. And now I'm doing it. And they'll become like you as a teacher, and you will relate better, but you can't get people to that state without giving them little pieces at a time.
Yeah, and another visual, in addition to our cupcakes, it's sort of like Hansel and Gretel, right? You got to lead them through the woods. And the way to do it isn't to drop a house on them, to mix our fairy tale for ours. But the way to do it is put down a crumb. And then after they eat that crumb, you put down another crumb. So they just follow one step at a time down the path.
Mm-hmm. And when you do it right, you will find that people that don't know you, have no vested interest in what you do, are going to rave about what you're doing. And you guys are going to see that in a second here. So I read a book called Story Brand by Donald Miller, 6 months ago. I shared it with my friend Kyle, who was on a minute ago. And I told Stacey, I'm like, you will love this book. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to take a few minutes, as long as you're still good time-wise here. And we're going to talk about what you learned, because you just read Story Brand, and it totally ties into all of this.
Yes. So, and to make your point, I immediately called everyone that I knew and said, buy this book. So 10 people bought the book. Exactly. Right? Because they were friends on a level that they didn't say, okay, wait, and what, and how much does it cost? And are you sure? I'm like, okay, no, buy the book. I posted on my Facebook page, told everyone, you got to buy the book. So, right. So when you get something that hits, I know people call it viral, but that's a different thing, I think. Yeah. But when you get something that so makes a difference, your people call all their friends who call all their friends who call all their friends, right? Like done. He doesn't need to market, because everyone who reads the book is going to rave about the book. And I do have a few more minutes, and then I have a kid. that booked in right after this. But the book is so good, and he talks about how that there's a we didn't talk about this, but notice when I got up on the stage with Seth Godin, I didn't talk about learning theory, but that's my jam. I want to tell everyone about the cognitive reasons why we learn and all of that. But you know what? Nobody cares. I care. So I have all my subscriptions to my magazine, but even my husband's like, please do not tell me more about this, right? No one cares about that. But what people do respond to, and what as humans we're wired for, story. So when you want to communicate information, how can you wrap it into a story? And that's what they're going to remember. Because you can tell me the technical thing of the pixel has to be blah blah blah, and I'm like, dude, it just goes in one ear and out the other. And I'm not the only one. Right? The technical information, specific formula stuff, I can't teach my kids formulas. I don't, right? Because it just goes in one ear and out the other. But what I do is I teach them stories, such that the moral of that story stays with them and changes their behavior. Like Aesop stories, right? It's not like we invented this. This has been around for years. And then the book is so good about distilling that down, saying when we communicate to people, communicate to them in a story, in a very specific story framework. And yeah, it was amazing. I'm still rewriting. I'm like, oh, this is what I was missing. I was presenting myself as the expert. I'm the hero. I know everything there is to know about SAT, ACT tutoring, so you should hire me. And what I realized is my parents are the heroes and my students are the heroes. So I am now changing that, saying I can help you become the expert. And it sounds like a really subtle shift, but I don't think it is. I think it's a really big shift of saying, you're the hero of your story, and I can help you be even better. I can be the Obi-Wan Kenobi to your Luke, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's what action is, right? That's what teaching is. Obi-Wan isn't judged on the quality of his presentation. Obi-Wan is judged on what is Luke doing, right? His job was to get Luke into action. And I think it's totally consistent with everything that we've talked about, that if you say my job is to be the sidekick to the hero, how can I empower the hero to take the action they need to take to get closer to their goals? That's completely consistent with, give them a cupcake, get people into action.
And it's truly serving your audience. And that's something I always share with people. It's like, if you actually want to move somewhere, do something and feel significance and have real significance in life, it is moving others forward.
People. Yeah. Help people achieve their goals. And yes, got to put a link to the book on Amazon. The book is so good. And I read, oh my gosh, I'm a crazy reader. It jumped into my top 5 of all time, which is pretty, and I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. And this one immediately jumped up into one of the most amazing books I have read in the last 20 years. It is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So, I just like every line, the whole thing. I just highlighted every line,
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that. Like, I'm folding this page over. I'm writing this.
I know. Like and I've gone back and I'm like slowly transferring it into Evernote and keeping track of my ideas. And it's, oh my God, it's so good.
It's game changing. I implemented it right away, and it's been game changing dollar wise. How the audience and the tribe of people that I get to serve and help interact with me. It's so much different. So let's. I super appreciate you being on. Let's wrap up with a couple quick things, Stacey. One, obviously your main gig is that you help parents with their children and help them improve their scores, and they can find you at
Stellar Scores, stellarscores.com. So yes, I help teenagers all over the world improve their SAT and ACT scores. So if you know of somebody who does, send them my way. And I focus on, this probably won't surprise you, but I don't focus on teaching them new things to do. I focus on what do you already know and how do we strategically use what you already know in a better way. So it's, and I teach using stories, and most classes are 30 to 60 hours, and I work with kids for about 5 to 7 hours, and they get amazing, phenomenal results. And the reason is I know how to teach, and I'm a test prep expert, and those two things really are powerful when combined.
Definitely. And then one other question, which I have no idea the answer on, but do you provide services to business owners, to CEOs, to other people?
I do.
Teaching better, like you help me with.
Yes, for helping people make better stage presentations, helping people do better email sequences or web pages or freebies or ebooks or our courses. So yes, I do all of that, and that's over at staceyhowe-lott.com.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to talk to you and riff on, how do we all become better teachers in the world? Because the world will be a much better place the more powerfully we can learn to teach, right? Because we need what you have, and the better you're able to teach it to us, the more quickly we can implement that and create that change that you want to see in the world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Stacey. We'll let you run, and we'll have you back again soon. Everybody check out stellarscores.com, and I will drop some other links, and we'll see everybody again soon. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.